give him one more minute. Not yet. Okay, Larry, ready? Esainai el hearim me'ayin yavo Ezri Esainai el hearim me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Adonai Osei Shamayim va'aretz Ezri me'im Adonai Osei Shamayim va'aretz Ha'iten lamod raglecha Hayanum shomrecha Hine lo yanum velo yishan Shomer Yisrael Adonai shomrecha Adonai tzilcha ayad yeminecha Adonai shomrecha Adonai tzilcha ayad yeminecha Yomam HaShemesh lo yakeka ve'yareach balayla Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra Yishmor nafshecha Adonai yishmor tzeilcha uvoecha me'ata ve'ad olam Adonai yishmor tzeilcha uvoecha me'ata ve'ad olam Al mekoma tavo v'shalom thank you to everyone who has tuned in to the broadcast of this service. Of course, when it comes to rituals surrounding death and grieving, in Jewish tradition, we're used to being together for the service, for Shiva, and during the pandemic, this is not possible. It makes an already challenging time even more challenging. But we are thankful for things like technology and the fact that we can still see our service, though we may not be able to see you. We can read your emails and your phone calls and your text messages, and I encourage you to send these or to continue sending these today and throughout the week and throughout the month and throughout the year coming, so that we can all join our hearts together, not only to honor our beloved Sheila, but also to join our hearts together to bring courage, comfort, and strength to her family and those who are in mourning. Mourning is a complicated time, filled with many memories, some bitter, some sweet. We begin with the recitation of a psalm, linking the life of our beloved to thousands of years of Jewish tradition and the eternity of God. Shir Lama'alot, a song for those who ascend. Esainai el harim me'ayin yavo ezri. I turn my eyes to the mountains, from where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, from God, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way, your guardian will not slumber. You see, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian, your protection at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. God will guard your going and coming, now and forever. May Sheila Streifler go unto God in peace. Hatzur tamim, Paulo kichod racha mishpat, el emunah ve'inav, el tzadik v'yashar hu. Tzadik atah Adonai lamidu lachayod, asher biyadcha pigaron korochot chalil lecha zichronenu limchot. V'yihiyu na'inecha berachamim l'nefkochot, ki lecha Adon harachamim ve'aslichot. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam dayan ha'emet. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, who rules the universe, the judge of truth. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, yehi shem Adonai mevorach, v'hu rachum yechaper avon v'lo yashchit. V'yirba lashiva po v'lo ya'ir kol chamato, v'yashov ve'afar la'aretz she'aya, v'haruach tashuv el ha'Elohim asher netana. The dust returns to the earth as it was, but the spirit returns to God who gave it. May Sheila's soul be bound up in the bond of life eternal, and may God send comfort to those who mourn and grant strength to those whose burden is sorrow. We are here today to honor Sheila Streifler, Shulamit Bat Yitzchak Ufega, daughter of Irvin Chirac and Fanny Rosenblatt, Zichronam Livracha, both of blessed memory. We are here today to pay tribute to Sheila and celebrate her life. We're here to show her the ultimate respect we have in Jewish tradition of accompanying her here to her final resting place. And we are here to say goodbye. Sheila passed away yesterday, the 25th day in the Hebrew month of Kislev. She was 90. She will be lovingly missed and remembered by her children and their spouses, Lisa and Kenneth, Mark and Cindy, by her 4 grandchildren, Riley, Seth, Jesse, and Daniel, by her brother Neil and sister-in-law Judy, her brother Harold, her sister Elaine, and by her beloved extended family, nieces and nephews and their children in Winnipeg, Vancouver, Edmonton, and California. Sheila was predeceased by her parents and by her beloved husband, Nathan Streifler. The biblical book of Proverbs closes with a description of the Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor. The description has been incorporated into the ritual of what's said at Friday night Shabbat dinners, and it's come to be regarded as the highest honor we have in our tradition that we can bestow upon a lady. The epitome of a mother, a wife, a grandmother, and a homemaker. A woman who embodies virtues of courage and strength. The passage begins, Eshet Chayil mi yimsa, a good wife, a mother of generations, a woman of valor. What a precious find. Her worth is far above rubies. She is precious in the gifts she's given to her family. Her children have found trust and truth in these gifts. They follow in patterns she taught. She is robed in strength and dignity, and she smiles at the future. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. We benefit and learn from her wisdom. May she be credited for the fruit of her labor and for her achievements. Wherever people gather, her deeds speak her praise. May she live on in glory. I must admit, I didn't have the pleasure of knowing Sheila Streifler. But after spending time with her children last night, after hearing their stories and seeing the tremendous love they had for her, that so many people had for her and felt from her, I've learned that she was certainly worthy of being called an Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor. She came from a long line of strong contemporary women, her own mother Fanny being a perfect example. A lineage she passed on, living her life as an example and inspiration to family and friends. Smart, intuitive, energetic, and determined, Sheila was always motivated by doing the right thing. As Mark reminded us, why should a young man send a thank you card? Because it's the right thing to do. Her friends and family would never hesitate to seek her wisdom or advice. Sometimes she didn't hesitate to share it either, but she was always focused on doing what was right. A lady who was full of life, excited about life, who loved being active, loved interacting with people, socializing with friends, staying in touch with family, talking, shopping, going for lunches, playing mahjong. Someone who sought out art and beauty at every turn. Whether it was the symphony, ballet, theater, or live concerts. Whether it was collecting art, antiques, fashionable clothes, accessories, like her trademark handbags, beautiful things with which she could decorate her life and her home. Sheila Streifler was all about fashion, great taste, and a great eye. Even her legendary baking. I'm told she baked every day, and there were always at least one cake and 2 different kinds of cookies on the go, that she was always sending her grandsons home with baking, showing up at family houses with her latest creation, perhaps her signature banana bread, covered barely in just enough tinfoil. Even her baking was an expression of her creativity, her flair, her love of beauty. She cared deeply about being Jewish and about the Jewish community, volunteering time to Hadassah and to Ort, even serving as president of her Hadassah chapter for a time. When she and Nathan visited Israel to mark their 20th anniversary, it was one of the all-time highlights of her life and their lives together. Their 22-year marriage was beautiful, though much too short. A partnership that was respectful, a couple who were compatible. They settled into their roles in a traditional marriage comfortably, contently. Sheila delighted in taking care of the home, raising their kids, living in partnership with Nathan. He would take the bus to work so she could have access to their family car. I love the story I learned last night of how they met. that Nathan, who was 8 years older, was a bachelor optometrist, often up all night, playing cards, gallivanting, a man about town. His office was in the same building as the Chirac studio, the business started by Sheila's father, Irvin. And Nathan would often drop by on coffee breaks and visit with Fanny. Until one day Sheila came into the office, and after she left, Nathan asked Fanny, not realizing it was her daughter, who the pretty girl was. Fanny immediately responded, "She's not for you." And yet, when the next Jewish holiday rolled around, there was Nathan somehow invited to the Chirac home for dinner. And that was that. Nathan and Sheila were married in 1953 at the Rosh Pina, and they started a family of their own with a home in St. James and their daughter Lisa, then a move to River Heights, Campbell Street, and their son Mark. It was never Sheila's plan to live without Nathan after that. And yet she was thrust into a life she couldn't have predicted or prepared for when he passed away suddenly 44 years ago. Yet Sheila adapted. She persevered, demonstrating that trademark strength, the resilience. She made a good life for herself over 40 years. It included going to work part-time, selling handbags at Handel's in Eaton Place, a job she held for 2 decades. Living on her own, driving, continuing to take trips all over the world to connect with family. There's so much that stands out to me about Sheila Streifler, her life and her legacy. We're lucky that we have Lisa, who will share a eulogy that she's written in her mother's honor. But if I may conclude this introduction, I would say I think I'm most taken by Sheila's devotion to family that came out in so many ways, and so many amazing, incredible stories that speak to who she was as a person, as a sister, daughter, wife, mother, aunt, and friend. These are stories that are sometimes little things, like never hesitating to give people rides, or what we've talked about with her baking, or finding just the right gift for someone in the family for a birthday. And then, of course, there are big things. Taking long road trips out to California with Nathan every 2 years to see all the relatives in San Francisco and LA. And continuing these trips, maintaining the relationships on both sides after Nathan had passed. Or the way she stepped up when her own father, Irvin, died when she was just 19, leaving university, getting a job, taking on more roles in the home to help Fanny and her 3 younger siblings. The way she stood by Nathan when he got sick, keeping him at home and taking care of him for as long as possible. Even the story about taking in her father-in-law, who spoke no English, living in their home as an elderly gentleman before he moved to the Sharon home. And heartfelt stories like when she became a Bobby, when Riley was born, and she became one of the caregivers, splitting time, taking care of Riley, driving him all over, taking him on outings, running errands with him. She always knew the right thing to do, and she lived her life doing it. As I mentioned, this is just an introduction, and now I'd like to call up Lisa to read the hesped, the eulogy that she has prepared.
Our mother was a wonderful person whose greatest pleasure was being part of a close-knit community of friends and family. Her family was everything to her. Mark and I and our spouses, Cindy and Kenneth, her grandchildren, Riley, Jesse, Seth, and Daniel, her sister Elaine, and her brothers Harold and Neil, and her nieces and nephews in Winnipeg, Vancouver, and California, and their children. She was also devoted to the many friends she maintained throughout her life. Our mom was blessed with a vibrant personality and a great enthusiasm for life, qualities that attracted people to her. She was an optimist and extremely capable, as well as being quite savvy. But she was also a sensitive person and could sometimes be easily hurt. She had great challenges in her life, yet she was able to overcome them or come to terms with them. Growing up as the eldest of 4 children on Scotia Street in Winnipeg's North End, she was the big sister, a role she carried throughout her life. She cherished her sister Elaine and her 2 brothers, Neil and Harold. When our grandmother was alive, they celebrated Jewish holidays together and pulled together as a family to support their mother and each other. At that time, our grandmother was the matriarch. After her passing in 2001, Mum took on that role. When Harold and family moved to Vancouver, Mum and Neil were the only siblings living in Winnipeg. Mum was very close to her youngest brother, Neil, talking on the phone almost every day and feeling very protective of him. She felt a strong connection to her sister-in-law, Judy, and enjoyed sharing her special recipes and planning holiday menus with her. Over the years, they shared many enjoyable times together, where Mum loved being with Neil and Judy's family, and especially finding special gifts to give her great nieces and nephews. She loved that there were 3 generations of family, and it was important to her that the younger generation knew her. She was so proud of her Chirac family lineage, which was well known in Winnipeg. She married our dad, Nathan, in 1953, and they had a wonderful marriage for 22 years. Mum took great joy in being a wife, a mother, and a homemaker. She was an exceptional cook and baker, and she created a beautiful and comfortable home for our family, surrounding us with the many beautiful and meaningful objects she loved to collect. She took care of us with utmost attention to every detail. Our parents shared a love for and devotion to family, values they instilled in my brother and me. Tragically, our dad passed away much too soon, and my mom was left a widow at age 46. She was at first unprepared for life as a single woman, but with great courage and determination, she rebuilt her life. One of the things most important to her was what she could do for others. Not one to merely focus on herself, she devoted herself to giving her mother, Fanny, the love and support she needed to live independently in her own home until she was 92 years old. Mom loved being at family events, not only with her Winnipeg family, Neil and Judy and their children, Marla, Ian, and Dana. She often traveled to Vancouver to be with Elaine and her late husband Emil, and Harold and his late wife Eileen and their families. She loved her nieces and nephews there deeply, Ilana, Josh, Yael, and Hartley, and they also felt very close to her. She also had a large family of uncles and aunts on her mother's side in San Francisco that were important to her. Mom traveled to California to be with family on our dad's side, and she was very close with his sister Bess and her husband Ed, and brother Jim and sister-in-law Lois, and her 3 nieces, Marilyn, and her husband Paul, Lori and Carol, and 2 nephews, Larry and Joel. She also loved Carol's children, Michelle and Michael, and Marilyn and Paul's daughter, Marissa. With the birth of her first grandson, Riley, in 1992, Mom found a new role that she loved, that of Bobby. Then twins Jesse and Seth arrived in 1996, and in 2001, Daniel arrived, and she was over the moon with pride for her 4 clever, handsome grandsons, always so interested in what they were doing and making sure she was actively present in their lives. She had no trouble keeping up, always full of energy. Even in her 80s, Mom seemed much, much younger. She was strong and vital. She loved going to all sorts of cultural events with her friends, and she was admired by many for her fashion sense and her social skills. She loved living in her beautiful condo, driving her car, and being independent. But all of that changed when she was diagnosed with a debilitating illness when she was 86. The past 4 years were very challenging for Mom, as she faced a physical decline that was exceedingly difficult. Her mind was always sharp, but her awareness made the situation even more difficult. Given this lot to bear, Mom never complained or felt sorry for herself. She remained keenly interested in us and our lives, and when we visited, as we often did, she would light up and her beautiful blue eyes would sparkle. She was brave beyond words and set an example for all of us, as she did throughout her life. She gave us all the gift of selfless love we will always treasure. She is in our hearts and will remain there forever as the loving and generous person she was.
Thank you, Lisa. Your words are so beautiful, heartfelt. Thank you for sharing them with all of us today. In a moment, I will chant the words in Hebrew and then read in English of the El Malei Rachamim, the memorial prayer in honor of Sheila Streifler, Shulamit Bad Yitzchak Ufega, the daughter of Irvin and Fanny. In conclusion, I will say before I chant the prayer that last night, just actually as Sheila was passing, we began the Festival of Lights, Hanukkah. And in thinking, reflecting on Sheila's life and hearing Lisa's powerful eulogy, I'm reminded of a teaching about candles and flames and light in Jewish tradition. That each of us has a flame within us, a spark, a divine spark. And that we can't forget that just as candles give light and give warmth and break through even the darkest night with their light, they have the ability to kindle other lights, so that other candles may burn brightly long after the initial flame has been extinguished. In this way, just as we've reflected today and will continue to reflect going forward, in this way, Sheila Streifler will live on as a blessing, an inspiration, and an example through all the other lights she has kindled throughout her life. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamtzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina B'malot Kedoshim Uteorim Kezohar Akiya Mazirim Et Nishmat Shulamit Bad Yitzchak Ufega Shalcha Leolama Began Edente Menuchata Hanabal Harachamim Hastirei Beseter Knafecha Leolamim et nishmata Adonai hu nachalata v'tanuach b'shalom Amishkava V'nomar Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Sheila Streifler, Shulamit Bat Yitzchak Ufega, daughter of Irvin and Fanny of blessed memory, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that she find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. In a moment, we'll turn to the words of the mourner's Kaddish. That will conclude the part of the service that will broadcast. The family will have an opportunity to shovel earth, to cover their loved one. In keeping with Jewish tradition, it's difficult because it's one of those things that we need to be together for, because we believe so strongly that an extension of caring for our loved ones till the very end is to bury them with our own hands. Kind, knowing, sorrowful hands, hands that once held their hands. Luckily, we have a few family members who will be able to begin this mitzvah, this painful act that is born of love and compassion for someone who meant so much to so many people. Before we turn to those words, I'll thank everyone again. I encourage you all to continue to reach out if you haven't yet, or keep reaching out to the family. And to the family, I offer these words: Hamakom yinachem etchem b'toch sha'ar evelei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May you be comforted and consoled among all those who are in mourning or who have ever been in mourning in our community. Earlier in the service, we said, Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, yehi shem Adonai mevorach. These are the words of Job, the epitome of Jewish suffering. God, you have given. God, you have taken away. Blessed be the name of God. May the memory of Sheila Streifler be a blessing, as we mark that her essence will never leave our hearts and our souls. The Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'it hadar, v'it alev, v'it halal, shemei dekudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu yaseh shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. May the one who creates peace and harmony on high bring peace and harmony to us, to all Israel, and to all of humanity. And again, let us say, Amen. Thank you. Thank you again.